This may sound to you like theoretical quibbling, self-liquidating credit, real bills doctrine, disagreement between this school and that school of economics. But I can assure you it's much more than theoretical quibbling. Some very tragic event happened between the two world wars. And I think my book will be the only book, when it appears, which explains this tragic event. I call this tragic event the destruction of the wage fund. So I take a few minutes to explain that concept because I think it affects all of us and it will affect our children and grandchildren as well. The bill market, which I mentioned, well, where real bills are being traded, bills being the financing instrument for the movement of consumer goods, this bill market is what I call the clearing house of the gold standard. Without the bill market, the gold standard is impotent. It cannot accomplish its purpose of being the backbone of the economy, being the most liquid commodity. It's the material out of which money is manufactured, the measuring rod of value is being manufactured. That is what gold is. But only if it has its clearing house, where the real bills, these are instruments, financial instruments, which mature in 3 months, or 13 weeks, or 91 days, a quarter of the year. And they will mature into gold. They will be payable in gold coin when they expire, when they mature. And this is how you understand the importance of real bills. Now, 91 days is the period of time when a lot of workers are manufacturing the various implements which ultimately reaches the consumer. It means that for 91 days, these things, semi-finished products, are not yet ready to be sold to the consumer. They have 91 days, 13 weeks, to be market ready when they can be sold for cash. But these workers who are working on these, which will be sold only 91 days later, or less than 91 days, whatever, it's not going to be cash. And therefore, the wages of these workers will have to be advanced from a source of credit. And we call this the wage fund. The wage fund is that source of credit which pays the wages of the workers who produce semi-finished goods on the way to the ultimate consumer. And if this wage fund is not available, if the credit to pay these wages is not available, then the workers will not be able to be paid. They will not get their wages. they'll be laid off, and there will be unemployment. And this is exactly what happened. And none of the economists realized that when they eliminated the gold standard, the gold coins in circulation, then they destroyed the wage fund. The workers could not get paid weekly. And since they couldn't get paid, they were laid off. And that's exactly what happened. To understand this, we have to refer specifically to the bill market, the clearinghouse of the gold standard. And I mentioned the historic event in 1925, Britain went back on the gold standard. Not the gold coin standard. The sovereign, the British gold coin, the £1 gold coin, was not reintroduced. You could get gold only if you had enough paper money to buy 400 ounces or 12.5 kilograms of gold bars. It's something as big as a brick, a little bit smaller. Solid gold. They call it good delivery bar. If you had that much money, you could get your brick of gold, but no gold coins, you see. And as a consequence, there was no clearinghouse, no bill market. Britain, which offered the facility for bill trading before World War I, withdrew that facility. The circulation of gold bills, of real bills, of self-liquidating credit was eliminated. And they didn't think of the consequences. Politicians, economists just ignored and did not want to bother with looking, well, what will that change result in a few years' time or in a decade's time? And the very tragic thing did actually happen. The wage fund was destroyed because the wage earner was paid out of the circulating real bills. Most of that bill circulation was in fact the wage fund. And once this was withdrawn, Britain could go back nominally on a gold standard. It did not help because the gold standard was ineffective. It was impotent without its clearinghouse, the bill market. So what the question arises, why did Britain do that? Why did the victorious Entente powers eliminated real bill circulation? Well, the records are not in the public domain. They never reveal the secret negotiations which, going way back to the armistice of 1918 and the peace treaties at Versailles in 1919 and 1920, that they will not allow real bills to go back and perform the job they did before the war. But the picture is quite clear. They did this because they were afraid of German competition after the peace treaties signed. And they eliminated multilateral trade, which was represented by the gold standard with real bills, and they wanted bilateral trade, two countries trade, but a real bill which goes from country to country and does the clearing of these various debits and credits which arise in world trade was eliminated. The economists of the Entente powers were blind to see the dire consequences, the coming disaster in the form of the Great Depression of the 1930s. There was one exception. Heinrich Rittershausen, a German economist, did see it, and he was practically the only one who did see this catastrophe to approaching, the tremendous unemployment. It was unprecedented in all history. But the warnings of Rittershausen were dismissed as German chauvinistic propaganda. The gold standard was made the whipping boy responsible for the unprecedented wave of unemployment. That judgment is still outstanding. No economist stood up to say that the fault lay not with the gold standard, but with the decision to castrate the gold standard by removing its clearinghouse, the bill market.